So we're looking at ways to classify materials. I have a quick question. Can you guys please close your eyes? I don't want to read the screen actually. Like, you know what? I can do this. Yeah. Now, can you guys think of how time can be used to classify materials? That is, how can we tell a material is solid, a material is liquid, or a gas using time as a factor? Can you think of it? Or we can use time as a tool to talk about or classify materials. What do you think? I hope you guys have your opinion or your thought. So let's look at it. How can we use time as a factor to classify materials? A key factor that helps us classify material is time. Time is time it takes for a given object to change its shape in response to an external force. That's how you can make use of time as a way to talk about materials. A given material is a solid, a given material is a liquid. How can we tell? Making use of time. So let me explain it actually. So we're talking about solid now. I have an object. I apply some force. Okay. So as soon as I apply force, what happens? Say it deforms a bit. We are applying that amount of force so that it can deform this solid. So the time it takes for the object to deform, it's kind of minute. So this is once we are applying force. Once you stop applying the force, right, force is released, what happens? One of the possibilities is that the object can go back to its original shape. Okay. When you apply the force, it deforms a bit. When you release it, when the force is released, it goes back to its original shape. Right? This is one of the possibility. So now my question to you guys is, what is the time for deformation? How much time did it take to deform? It's almost instantaneous, is it not? If a solid deforms for a particular amount of force, it will deform immediately. And after that, there's a chance that it will stop deforming. It just will be there, Let me take an actual example. If I take up a pencil which is straight, right? If I apply a force, there's a possibility that it will bend. There's a possibility that it will stop. It will bend and it will stop after that. So here is me applying a force. And it will bend, and what happens after I release, it goes back to its original shape. Is it not? So my question to you guys is, if I apply it for say 1 minute or 10 minutes or 100 minutes, the same amount of force, what will be the difference? Honestly, nothing. Right? As soon as I release, it goes back to the original shape. So the time for deformation was very small, and it was independent of the time we are applying the force. So we tell that solid, a substance is said to be solid if that deformation is time independent. Okay. So again, there are conditions over here. So that condition being that we are just looking at a small amount of force, and yeah. So as soon as you apply, the deformation happens, and even if you continue to apply that amount, the same amount of force, not more force, same amount of force, the object will not get further deformed, and so it's time independent. If you apply it for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, if you apply it, you'll just keep the object over there. That's it. It will just keep the object over there, and that's it. It doesn't matter how long you're holding, it will just be so. As soon as you release it, it goes back to its original shape. Like if you hold a rubber band, if you stretch it to a certain value, right, certain length, however long you're holding, a minute or 2 or 3, as soon as you release it, it goes back to its original shape, is it not? That's why a solid is said to be time independent deformation. Now your fluid, that is your gas and your liquid, they're time dependent. That is, Say I have a container, right, holding some liquid. So as soon as if I'm able to make it disappear, this container disappears. What happens? So if I can draw a time lapse over here. So first thing is, I mean, it won't be exactly right, and how it will look. How might it look actually? So it might start spreading like this. You know, this can happen again, and it will spread and spread and so this is time. Remember, this is time. And so on and so forth. So this being time. So what we're looking at is the fluid as to the point we are applying the force. It keeps deforming. It doesn't stop. Of course, it stops after a certain point of time, that is after a certain condition is met. But if not, it'll keep deforming, keep deforming, keep deforming. Do you guys agree? So that is your fluid. Fluid is, time dependent deformation. And that's how we can classify solid and a fluid. That's why you can classify material as solid and fluid using time as a factor. And now in this chapter, we're looking at fluids. So let's look at fluids. As a definition, held together by weak coercive force. What is coercive force? We'll be discussing that. And by a force exerted by the walls of the container. That's how you can define a fluid. Fluid, remember, can be either a gas or a liquid. The property, it cannot withstand shear stress. I hope you guys remember shear stress. It can only exert and withstand tangential force, that is perpendicular to its surface. A fluid cannot withstand shear stress. It can only withstand tangential force. We have a proof for this, so we'll be looking at it. So a fluid is studied under two branches. One is fluid static and fluid dynamic. Obviously, fluid static has to do with fluid at rest. Fluid dynamic has to do with fluid in motion. That's how we'll be studying fluid as. So what is a fluid? A fluid is a collection of molecules that are randomly arranged and held together by a weak coercive force and by force exerted by the walls of the container. Are gases too a fluid? Yes. Both liquid and gases are fluids. Many people consider fluid as only liquid, but it's not. Even gases are part of it. Shape of a fluid. Fluids conform to be boundaries. Wait, what? Fluid conform to the boundaries of any container in which we put them. So it takes up the shape of the container. It's a fancy way of putting that across. They do so because a fluid cannot sustain a force that is tangential to its surface, or a fluid is a substance that flows because it cannot withstand a shearing strain. Okay, again, there are many ways of defining fluid. Anyways, it was nice for me, or I felt good about this. It's a unique thing. Time as a factor to classify materials. It's quite unique, is it not? So let me just recap. We're looking at classifying materials as either solid or liquid with the help of time. A solid deformation is independent of time, while a liquid deformation is dependent on time, right? So this we can understand just by observing our things around us. You apply a bit of force and you will get to see this. So fluid, this is a basic idea. We'll be learning about all of this, but this is an overview. So we have the definitions, we have gas and liquid as fluids, we have the properties, and we are studying fluid under static and dynamic. Okay. So as a definition, there are quite a few of defining fluids. And yeah, I would want you guys to pause and have a look. Let me start from here actually. Okay, this as well. If you guys want to